Thanks for clicking on Wayne.com as we talk Komets playoff hockey with Blake Sebring of the News
Finally,
Sentinel.
thank goodness.
We are here.
That
and
regular season that lasted forever is done.
Although Komets fans could have wished the last month the way they played.
No, I was ready for the regular season to end.
All right,
I was ready for it to end.
Well, they ended 8-2-1 in the regular season, and then carried that over to a Game 1 win. Right now, it's 1-1. Komets in their series with Reading, and I think if you'd have said, well, before the series, they take 1-2 from Reading, we'd be really happy. But in some ways, there's a disappointment through the weekend because they could have taken 2. So it's kind of a glass half full, half empty. Yeah. And I don't want to rain on the parade, but I know you and I were talking off camera. This could have been, they could have taken 2 from the Royals in this series.
I felt like the Komets probably controlled the play 66-33%, percentage there in the 2 games. So they had every chance to win the second game. I mean, you look at it, the first period, they're getting drilled. I mean, just smoked, and it's still 1-1 coming out of it. With Sean Sedlowski's goal, and then the second period, the Komets just destroy them. I mean, they are dominating them, and Reading's just like shooting from the blue line to get shots, But the Komets don't score, and then the Komets come out and kill off 4 minutes in penalties right at the start of the third period, and Reading doesn't even get a shot on goal. And the Komets get like 3 or 4 shots shorthanded, and they just miss cashing. And it's like the next 5 minutes, they're kind of like feeling back and forth. So the Komets actually, that 30 minutes there, they were the king of the hill, but they couldn't push the goal across that would have given the lead. And then they get a bad bounce, and that was the game right there. And it was just a weird bounce. It was a perfect shot by Brandon Blandina, just absolutely perfect. Nothing that Nick Meisner could have done, or Ben Meisner could have done, and it was just bang, perfect. But I felt like the Komets controlled that game.
Yeah, I mean, it's a 2-1 game with 2 minutes left in regulation, and anybody's game right there. A couple of empty netters, as you mentioned. But statistically, there's so much difference between, if you just look at it on paper, between what happened in Game 1 and what happened in Game 2. Komets had 39 shots in Game 1, 20 in Game 2. Reading, 21 in the first game, 31 in the second game.
That was different, too, because the Royals, like the first period, were just firing. Anything, anywhere, we're just getting it on net no matter what. They wanted to put the pressure on the Komets' defense. They wanted to keep the puck in the zone, and the quickest way to get it there is to shoot it on goal and make the goalie play it, and that's what they were trying to do there. So they had a big lead there. In fact, I think it was... there was one point at the start of the second period, it was like 14 or 15-4. And then it was like 18-14 all of a sudden. That's how much difference the play was in the second period. And the Komets were really controlling things and keeping Reading off of them and keep them in the other end. That's how much the swing was.
And I heard an interview with Gary Graham. He basically said what you said, that they came out in the second game.
That's because he's really smart.
I wasn't going to say it. I can't give you that kind of credit.
Intelligence,
But he said exactly what you said. He said they came out firing, completely different mentality in the first period in Game 2. Does that make them more difficult to scout down the road in what could be, a 5, 6, 7 game series, because you don't know what kind of punch you're going to get first off?
No, I don't think so at all. I think Reading played really desperate hockey, and the Komets knew that. They knew that first 10 minutes they had to hold them off, and if they could have popped a breakaway, then if it's 1-0, if they score, and then Reading's got to go like, oh boy, now what? We gave them everything we had, and it didn't work. Well, the Komets, let it work in a way. They didn't hit back. They didn't put any pressure on Reading. They just sat there and took the pressure and took it, and they were doing the rope-a-dope kind of thing. And if they could have gotten a little bit of pressure on Reading offensively, maybe they could have popped it, and maybe it's 2-0 right now in this series. I mean, they were that close. I mean, that's how good the games were, that the Komets had their chances. I mean, they had probably 4 great scoring chances when it was still 1-1 in the third period, and they couldn't cash on. They had a post and they missed it. Riley Gill made a couple good saves. If you get one out of those, you're up 2-0, because Reading's gonna back up at that point. They're gonna be like, oh crap, we're home, and their fans are a lot worse than the Komets fans. As if things aren't going good, oh boy, do they let you hear it. I mean, you can hear it from everywhere there with a crowd of 3,000, 4,000 people, and they are spoiled just like Komets fans, and you can hear them all over the ice, and they're getting on their team. They're not getting on the opponents, they're getting on their team.
You've mentioned the goaltending a lot, and I think that's something that's obviously every year we talk about it in the playoffs. It's magnified what happens in between the pipes. This is kind of a two-part question, but we've seen both of Redding's goalies. Mm-hmm. You said that's partly because of an injury with Gill and Anderson, but my question is, going forward, will they be going with just one guy? And then on the Komets side of things, Meisner's been so great away from home, 12-1 in the regular season away from home in a Komets sweater this year. Considering his struggles at home, is there an opportunity, especially maybe early in these 3 games in Fort Wayne, to see Summer Hayes?
No, there's not.
Really?
And I'll tell you why, because Meisner is in a zone right now. I mean, Redding scored 3 goals against him, and one of them was Josh Britt in the first game where it was a drop pass, and the guy hit the top corner just like this far over Meisner's shoulder. Perfect shot. That was their one goal that game, essentially. The second game, they come in, it's a power play. He makes the save. No, actually, Jordan Southern goes down to block the shot, and he blocks the shot, but it bounces right to a guy, and Meisner's over here looking at the original shot, and there's no way he could miss. I mean, the guy, I could have even, with one of them little signature souvenir sticks.
You never know, though.
No, I could have. That's how far out it was. I mean, it was just a perfect bounce, okay? And then the third one was the game-winning goal, which it wasn't a game-winning, it was a game-deciding goal, where a guy threw the puck in from the point, one of the Komets defensemen blocked it, and it bounced right to the guy who whipped it to the other guy, boom, he just turned and fired, and Meisner went out to get him, and he did everything perfectly. He cut the angle, he went out to challenge, but as he moved laterally, he opened up a hole about that big, and that's where the guy put it. I mean, it's 3 perfect shots that they have scored on Meisner, and he has nailed everything else, and he's made 3 or 4 saves. I had a picture in tonight's paper of the one where the guy was right out front from me to you, and he got his glove on it and knocked it over the goal. I mean, it was just unbelievable. He's made a bunch of those saves, and he's completely calm. He's like, you can tell he is in a groove, and I wouldn't mess with that for anything right now. He's just going to get, I think it's going to get harder and harder to score on him the rest of the series.
On the second part of that question, Gill, Anderson.
Gill will be the guy. Gill was the MVP of the playoffs last year. He had an injury. I don't know what it was. They wouldn't specify, of course, but they said that they didn't want to test it in the first game. They wanted to see and Anderson won 25 games this year. But I have a feeling Gill's going to be the guy the rest of the way, unless the Komets come out and blow him out in one of the other games, and then maybe they go back to Anderson.
That kind of reminds me of Boucher, Timmy Hahn. Timmy Hahn had a really good regular season.
And then
he was noticeably upset when Boucher got the call, but history tends to repeat itself.
Yeah, well, I mean, and the thing is Brandon Anderson, he won 25 games. You'd start him anyway, but Gill is now 3-0 against the Komets, and he's basically given up 3 goals in 3 games against the Komets.
I'm glad you brought that up, because my next point, or the next thing that I want to talk about, is the Komets 5-on-5 offensively. They haven't been great. The shorthanded goal was the first goal. Then Sidlowski's game winner was 5-on-5, but it was, the shorthanded goal by Embach was their first of 2 goals in game 1. And then in game 2, you also had one 6-on-5 goal at the end. So you've only got in 2 games 2 5-on-5 goals totals if you're the Komets. And this is a team, we'll talk about their defense, how it's cranked up in a minute, but offensively, that's what's carried the torch for them throughout the majority of the season. How concerned are you with that?
Actually, I asked Gary Graham that question, and he said it's
great minds thinking alike.
Yeah. Lack of sleep will do funny things to you. I asked him that question because I wanted to hear what he would say, and he's like, it's just tight. It's just defensive tight hockey. And what I think he's really saying is the Komets, if they play defensively, they're going to be fine because their speed will create the options for them. And it has so far. They have had more scoring options than Redding has so far in this series. But the speed, they just missed them, And maybe, I think that'll even be more pronounced in Fort Wayne where they think the ice is bigger and it's a little bit faster ice too. I think that will be more pronounced in Fort Wayne. I think if the Komets concentrate defensively like they have, keep pushing them outside, keep winning the battles along the boards, they're going to pop open a couple things.